bother looking for that, let alone chasing it. Safely away for 4. That's a splendid 100.
And now he really is going to go. He smashed that miles. It's gone way over the top of deep square leg. And he's hit that one straight down the ground too. And what a player he is.
Oh, what a good catch. Everything is running for Botham. Runs, wickets and catches.
What a magnificent catch by Ian Botham. Superb wicket, and even cutting around and applauding the gap.
Hold him.
That's it this time. He's made sure he's taken 5 wickets. He grabs the stump.
Ian, your abundance of natural talent and unquestionable enthusiasm for the game at an early age did not go unnoticed. Your dad said to you, at 18 you've got to play for Somerset, and before 25 you've got to play for England.
Yeah, and he said to me that when I was about 14. Those words came out. I had to make a decision between playing soccer, or as football as we call it, but the rest of the world calls it soccer, with that round ball, or cricket. And my father sent to me and said, look, those exact words, you're a better cricketer than you are a footballer, and set yourself some targets, and this is what you go for.
Right, 1977, the old enemy Australia in England, you selected for England. Now, your first 2 test matches, you get 5 wickets in an innings in each test match. And in fact, in the first test match, it was on the first day. Now, I want you to go through it, but Ian, I want to tell you my first day at a test match in 1965 at Lord's. I never troubled the scorers. I was so nervous. Tell me about those first 2 test matches.
We had great conditions to bowl at Headingley. That was the second game where I broke my foot. In the first game where it all kicked off, it was a momental. We were there, we lost the toss, so we're out in the field. And I think that was the best thing that happened, because suddenly you've got to sit around and think about it. You're out in the field, you're into the game. The Queen came along to that match and met the Queen. So it was a bit surreal, the whole game, and picked up the wickets. First ball back in the second spell, bowled an absolute jaffer to Greg Chappell, wide long hop, which he went to cut and chopped it onto the stumps. And then picked up Dougie Walters, Rod Marsh, David Hooks, and ended up with Pfeiffer. And it was a fair old baptism. But the actual game, I think, with the Queen going there, first test match, it's still quite hazy. The next game up at Leeds, I remember more clearly, and we went there, and it was fantastic conditions to bowl for a swing bowler. It hooped around, as you yourself know, Ali. At Leeds, if you get overcast conditions, you bowl. You don't even consider it. And it went around. It nipped about, picked up Pfeiffer. I remember one of the wickets was down the leg side. Alan Knott, Rod Marsh, I think it was, played it off his legs. Terrific. He anticipated it and then went full stretch and got it one-handed. But the only thing was, the only sad part of that game was I actually broke my foot stepping on the ball. But the good thing about that was that introduced me to leukemia, which took over my life for quite a long time after that.
On the first day of the first test match, Brian Close, your captain, Somerset, caused the day. What impact did he have on your career?
Look, Brian Close, we sadly buried him not long ago, a few months ago. And I was given the honour of reading the eulogy. And it was something I would have wanted to do. Didn't need to be asked. That guy set me up. Brian Close, as a captain, as a person, he was an honourable man. He was a fierce competitor. He never asked you to do anything that he couldn't or hadn't done. Fearless at short leg as a fielder, fearless as a batsman. Everyone remembers the West Indian attack and him taking the blows on the body. And then, of course, later on in his career, when he was 44 years of age, he gets another dose of the West Indies, the Michael Holdings and these guys, and he comes back and he's battered.
And that's hurt him. Brian Close is going to be a mass of bruises when he eventually gets back into the haven of the pavilion.
Brian Close, he was the first to pull you down if you did something wrong, rip you down, bring you back to ground very quickly. But he was equally the first guy to buy you a drink after he'd given you the biggest roasting of your life. And he'd say, come on, lad, that's it, let's have a chat now. What about tomorrow? What are you going to do? And that was the kind of guy he was. The only thing you didn't want to do with Closey,
Tell me about it.
You did not want to get in the car with him.
Why?
As junior pro, I had to travel with him quite a lot. Now, Closey, if you can imagine, someone gave him this, it was one of his, it was a sponsored year for him, and he had a Ford Capri. Now, why someone gave him a Ford Capri, I don't know. But I'm sat in the passenger seat, and it was a central console here, and in the central console, you would have the flask with the pot of tea, you know, the tea in the flask, all ready to go, sugared and milk. Then next to that, you'd have the beef sandwiches wrapped up, and then you'd have 60 Benson and Hedges if it was over 3 hours the journey, and the window halfway down, and the newspaper. Now, he doesn't have the newspaper, he had the broadsheet of the Sporting Life, and if you were just reading the headlines, I might have relaxed a bit, but he was actually reading the form, which is this size, and we're doing 80 in the outside lane. So that was his major fault. It used to petrify me. I never, you know, sometimes you get in a car and you think, I'll have a little doze here for an hour or two. No chance. You watch the road for every split second. But Closey as a man, I couldn't fault him. To me, he was almost like a father figure. And he always wanted you to play at your best. And if that meant that he had to, if he felt he needed to put you right somewhere, he would do it. And Viv and I grew up together, Viv Richards, and he wasn't a bad player. And Viv and I grew up with Brian Close as our mentor and our leader, our captain. I think if Viv was sat here next to me now, he would be the first to actually say and agree with you, or with me, and say, Brian Close, if it wasn't for you, we probably wouldn't be where we are now.
1978, the Test match at Lords, Pakistan. You get a century and 8-4-34 in the second innings. Would this be one of your best ever Test matches?
Yeah, I think in those days it sort of set the standard, raised the bar, and made me had to think about performing to that level. The 100, I can remember the 100. 100 was fine. It's a great wicket. It was a belting wicket, and it didn't do much. But for some reason, the next day, it was not a cloud in the sky, which you don't get too often in England. Not a cloud in the sky at Lords, warm day, and the ball, for no apparent reason, I've never understood the science of a cricket ball swinging. We've tried all kinds of experiments. My father did with wind tunnels at Western Helicopters. There is no logical reason. But that morning, it whooped all over the place. I bowled probably one of the best deliveries I've ever bowled. It pitched outside leg, and it actually took middle and off stump out the ground. 8-for-34. No one expected it. We didn't expect it. It didn't do it in the nets in the morning. Well, apparently it didn't do it in the nets in the morning. But we went out there in the middle, and it just went from the word go, just swung all over the place. It was, yeah, it was a bit freakish.
1980, you 25, you made captain of England. 12 Test matches, no wins. But to be fair to you, you played the West Indies 10 times, and they were dominant, unbeatable. On reflection, would you say that you weren't ready for it, or you didn't want it?
When you're 24 going on 25, and someone comes along and says to you, the highest accolade that we can bestow upon you as a cricketer for England is the captaincy.
You take it.
You take it. You don't even think about it. Of course, I'd love to do it. With hindsight, which is a great thing, probably did come 2 or 3 years too early.
Hard times for Botham. The Wonder Boy image has deserted him after a year of indifferent form, in stark contrast to his dramatic arrival on the Test scene 3 years ago. Those who saw him climb so quickly are now watching him fall, and there seems little doubt that his future as an England player, let alone captain, is on the line in this series.
Maybe I would have made a better job of it at 26, 27. But having said that, we lost 1-0 and 2-0 in 10 matches, 5 at home and 5 away, and not 5-0, 5-0, as it went on to be. They were, in my opinion, that side, the best West Indian team of all time, and I think the best Test side of all time. People say, oh, well, they didn't have a spinner. Well, when the hell was the spinner going to bowl? He was just never needed. He was never wanted. 4
quicks.
Well, and 4 or 8 more waiting to get their chance. They just had a pool of quick bowlers. When you think that people like Malcolm Marshall had to wait to get in.
Sylvester Clarke.
Yeah, Sylvester Clarke. Wayne Daniel hardly got a game when the team was at its best. And they'd have all played in any other Test side. They were magnificent. Batting lineup, Haynes and Greenwich, Richards, Kallicharran, Lloyd, it just goes on. Dujon coming in at about 7 or 8. Derek Murray before him. You had all these players. They were just an amazing team. So 1-0, 2-0, I was quite pleased with that.
In that same year, you go to Mumbai, you're not captain. It's a one-off test match. You're the first cricketer to get a century and 10 wickets in a test match.
Jubilee test match, yeah. We just had a really hard tour of Australia. On the way home, we stop off in Mumbai for this test match. A one-off. I think the team, we partied a little bit. And we enjoyed the fact that we were on our way home, one game to go. I can't say it was probably my best preparation for a test match. I didn't sleep very much, if at all. Everyone was just on a high going home. And yeah, we beat, I think, 14 wickets, 13 wickets, whatever it was. I bowled all the overs, I think, bar one at one end in the test match.
Right.
And got 100, yeah. But and it was quite nice. What was quite nice, the Aussies were en route as well, and they stayed over and they came to the game. I mean, there must have been something better to do in Mumbai than come and watch us play cricket, but they actually came and watched the cricket there, and I sat with them for a bit during that game. And everyone was just chilled after such a hard Ashes series. I think everyone just enjoyed each other's company. There was no aggro, there was no bitterness, there was no snide remarks. So, yeah, it was a very relaxed test match.
1981, Aussies in England. The second test match, you get a duck in the first innings, a duck in the second innings. As you go through the members' pavilion, David Gow tells me you could have heard a pin drop, a stony silence. You resigned, but it would appear that they were going to replace you as captain. Would that have been the worst moment in your whole test career?
Yeah, I think so, and it was also the most confusing moment, because the problem I had, Ali, you've captained, you knew what it's like, but when you're a captain, you need some kind of foundation to work with. And Ali Bacher and his selectors in those days decided and thought it was a very good idea to just give me one test at a time and to see if he's any good, which is ludicrous. It would never happen nowadays. It can't happen. And after 2 tests of playing under this, and I thought we'd done reasonably well in the West Indies to come back with results like that, and then to actually have the situation where they're giving me one game at a time. It's unfair on me, it was unfair on my family, and it was also very unfair on the dressing room because no one knew where we were going. So at the end of the second test, I thought, right, enough of this. I called the chairman, met him in the shower room at the back of the dressing room, and I said, look, I can't go on like this. I think you're not giving me a chance. I said, I'm resigning as of this moment. He said, okay, fine, I understand. Went back in the dressing room, called all the boys in at the end of the game and said, right, this is what's happened, lads. I've resigned. I felt that I wasn't getting the support that it was necessary from the selectors and the committees above that.
It's a professional life, so you've got to take the rough with the smooth, and I just feel that it's the best for everybody, and whoever takes over the job, I wish them all the best, and I hope that I can be a member of that team.
And the rest, they say, is history. The only thing that I can never forgive Alec Bedser for was at the end of the match when they interviewed him and they said, well, he's resigned, and he just turned around to them and said, well, we're going to sack him anyway. And I thought,
that's below the belt.
yeah, and unnecessary, totally unnecessary.
It's terrible to have to tell people they're not required, but he made it a lot easier too, because he approached the whole thing as I thought he would, as a man. You know, he's a great chap, Ian, and I've got every respect for him. I think he'll come back again, probably captain England.
And that really proved to me a little bit just how far removed he was from the game at that moment in time.
Right, let's go ahead into the third test, probably your greatest test match. You score 149 not out off 148 balls. In the second innings, where England won by 18 runs, having been 135 for 7 in the second innings after falling on 227 runs behind. Take me through it, Ian.
Well, where do you start? I'll start right at the beginning. Mike Brearley was appointed captain, and Mike Brearley came up to me at the nets the day before, and he came to me and he put his arm around me and he said, "Do you want to play?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I want to play. It's England and Australia." He said, "I thought you'd say that. I hoped you'd say that." He said, "I think you'll get 10 wickets in the match and you'll get 100 runs." And I said, "I hope you're right." And Breers was always pretty shrewd. He got it pretty much close on. But I always tell the story, and I think people have to remember that we'd actually written ourselves off after 3 days. We had the rest day, and I invited all the Australian team over to my house, which became a bit of a tradition.
The whole Australian team?
Yeah, the Australian team with the England team. And we had the marquee was up, and we had a big barbecue going, and the Aussie boys walked down the driveway with a slab of beer over each shoulder. And I think we won that test match really at about 3 a.m. that following morning when we beat them in the scrum down in the marquee. But we went back to the ground and we checked into our hotels. Then we checked out on the way out on Monday morning thinking that's it, we're all over, we're done and dusted here.
Yeah, what a triumph for him it would be if he could still be batting at 6 o'clock this evening. Lovely shot. Oh, beautiful stroke, beautiful stroke. And not quite where he intended, but it brings him his 50 nonetheless. His second 50 of the match, and that broad smile. And there is the 100 partnership between Ian Botham and Graham Dilley.
Don't bother looking for that, let alone chasing it. It's going straight into the confectionery stall and out again. Safely away for 4. That's a splendid 100. A great innings by Ian Botham.
As everyone knows, we had to go back to that evening and we had to rebook in to the hotel. And we went out there and we win the game. Bob Willis bowls 8 for 43, I think about 14 overs or something off the reel, coming down the hill.
Oh, what a good catch. Everything is running for Botham. Runs, wickets and catches.
Great fielding, got some great catching taken. Graham Dilley, Mike Gatting. Nothing was dropped. In Australia, they were 50 for 1 chasing that, and we picked up a couple of quick wickets, and we always said that on this pitch, it wasn't a very good pitch. If we get 1 or 2 quick wickets, who knows? We can put them under pressure, and as it turned out, we put them under pressure and they collapsed.
Bowl him, it's all over, and it is one of the most fantastic victories ever known in Test cricket history.
But there's a nice little side story to all that. There's a guy that a lot of people in South Africa know called Ricky Roberts. Now, Ricky Roberts, who was then 14, was over on a working scholarship, and he was given the job of being the England dressing room attendant. And Ricky Roberts, who then, of course, went on to carry Ernie Els's bag to 2 majors, one of the best caddies in modern times. But Ricky was sent at the end of the game, because the Australians had all the champagne in the fridge and in the bath. There was none for us. So I said to him, I said, "Listen, Ricky, just nip through there, knock on the door, and just say to those guys, look, you don't need the champagne, can the England boys have it?" And being a naive 14-year-old lad, he goes over, he knocks on the door, and the next thing, Ricky Roberts comes through our dressing room door, flat. He is absolutely flat. He's come through like a torpedo. And Ricky's never forgiven me for that to this day. But no, it was sort of stuff that it's Roy of the Rovers. It's the sort of thing you read in a comic. It never really happens, but it did happen, and it was probably the most remarkable Test match. It stopped the House of Commons. It stopped the city centre of Glasgow. Would you believe, in Scotland? It had an enormous effect on everybody in the country because England was going through a pretty horrendous time at that stage. We had the race riots, we had half of the country burning, we had the miners' strike. It was a pretty unpleasant time for a lot of people, and I think that game came at just the right time. It gave everybody a boost, not just the players, but of course the public, and it changed my life.
In the 4th Test, you get 5 wickets for 1 run, England win again.
Hold him. He's out. LBW. Second attempt, and Bob Taylor grabbed it.
And he's bowled him, and that surely is going to be it. A joyous, triumphant Botham there. Arms aloft again.
Alderman facing.
That's it this time. He's made sure he's taken 5 wickets. He grabs the stump.
The last test match, you get 118 in 102 balls. England won a game.
In the air, and 6. At Headingley, they gave Botham room to play his strokes. Here, they're doing it again, and he smashed them for a quick 50. Good shot.
Well, that one didn't. Lily's there. It's cleared him over the ropes. What a magnificent way to go to a 6. What a superlative exhibition this has been.
Yeah, no, I think what you and England achieved then was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a pretty remarkable series. You know, there was great points. The Old Trafford innings, the 100 there, was probably as well as I played there and Brisbane in 86-7 or 85-6, whichever way it was. That innings, that one there, and I think the 5 for 1. Actually, in fairness, the crowd at Edgbaston should have 3 of those wickets because it's not called the Bull Ring for nothing. And the atmosphere there, I think, got to the Australians. So they think the Edgbaston crowd can have 3 of those 5.
1985, 86s in a season. Now, it's not T20 cricket.
No.
It's not 50-over cricket. It's first-class cricket.
Well, we played at Taunton a lot of our cricket, and it's a belter of a wicket. I'm sure you played there, Ali. It's a flat wicket, small ground, and I was just in that kind of mood. I was quite tired, so from a lot of cricket, and I sort of thought, well, let's just go the aerial route as much as possible and not do too much running. So and that was the ground to do it. Yeah, we scored a lot of runs that summer. I think I averaged nearly 100 in first-class cricket. It is the place to do it. If you're going to do it, Taunton was the ground. And I had a couple of good players at the other end to take the pressure off me. You know, so there was a bit of rivalry between Viv and myself. We used to always want to get the fastest first-class 100 each season. There was a bit of a contest there. So, yeah, it was a great summer.
Yeah, and you played for Somerset 1973 to 1987. Right at the end, your great friend Viv Richards sacked and Joel Garner. You now go to Worcester. What happened?
I will always remember that day. I knew it was happening. There was a big groundswell put together by one person, Peter Roebuck, who was intent. He wanted the captaincy. He wanted to be the guru. He wanted a young team. And I saw it coming. And his main opponents to all that were 3 players: Viv Richards, Joel Garner, and myself, who would have stood up and fought our corner. And Viv and Joel were contracts not renewed, which was mind-blowing. I mean, you took 2 of the best players that Somerset have ever had. We hadn't won anything for 100 and odd years and won, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 trophies in a very short period of time. And that was down a lot of the time to Joel Garner, Viv Richards.
And yourself.
Yeah, and a couple of, I mean, some of the other boys played big parts, but yeah, that was the nucleus. And I said to them, came to me and said, well, we want you to stay at Somerset. I said, under no circumstances will I be here next season if what I think you're doing happens. And sure enough, it happened.
We don't want to run away from Somerset cricket. We want to play for Somerset, and we want to see Somerset winning things. Maybe if the committee signed a few players to help us, it would have helped over the last few years, instead of sitting on their backsides.
And they didn't think until the very last innings I played for Somerset at Taunton. When I got out, I walked to the middle of the pitch and I saluted every corner, thanked them all, and walked off the pitch. And then when the penny dropped, they realised that I was going as well. And it was a very sad day. And I think the Somerset supporters were robbed of certainly another 2 or 3 years of one of the best teams through one man's obsession with the captaincy. And he was a bright, intelligent man and a great manipulator. And he manipulated the people, I think, that made those decisions. And we all know what happened to Somerset from that point on, downhill. And they're too good it's too good a ground, it's too good a setup, and it's got too good of supporters not to be one of the top sides in the country, and they should be back that's where they should be, back at the top.
In a great stellar career, your performances against the West Indies, you play them 20 times, lost 13 times, one win in 1991.
Well, one thing I came out without any broken serious bones and not in a wooden box. So I did pretty well, I reckon, against that lot. They were the best, and I tried to take them on. And I thought you got to try and show aggression and take the game back to them. But when there's 4 of them lining up to give you a battering, it perhaps wasn't the right tactic. But yeah, I wouldn't have swapped that. I enjoyed playing against those guys. I loved playing against them. They are the best, and I think if you want to be with the best, you need to compete with the best. And I remember watching Alan Lamb at the other end, and I think he scored 700s.
300s.
In one series, but I think overall he might have got 6 or 7 against them. His record was amazing against the West Indians. And I said to him, you know why, Lammy? He said, why, what's that? I said, because you're only 5 foot. I said, because you can cut and pull all day long. I said, they don't bowl full balls to you, they don't bowl Yorkers. Everything's at length and you can cut it. He played magnificently. He was, I don't think I've ever seen anyone else play that side as well as Alan Lamb did, but it wasn't to be for me. I've got 60s, I've got 70s, I've got 80s, but never got 100 against them. That's, I suppose, one thing I'll have a regret for the rest of my career, because I'm a bit old to put it right now.
In the Cricket World Cup, started in 1975, 11 times. England have not won it once.
We should have won it in '92. We were the best team on display in that World Cup. We played it. We did too much cricket for being seen to do it. Net practice when we should have had. We're an older team. We should have had time away, go swimming, go to the beach, go playing golf. Not nets after nets after nets, and that was the way the regime operated in those days, which was sad because we should have won that World Cup. We were by far the best side in every single game up to the final. We had a couple of horrendous decisions go against us, and which cost us dearly when Pakistan were batting. I think Javid and Imran Khan were both absolutely all over Red Rover in front of the stumps, got away with it twice. No DRS, sadly. And then Wasim Akram bowled a 4-over spell, which is as good as anything I've seen in World Cup under the circumstances. He came in, Alan Lamb was playing well, he bowled him a ball from around the wicket that pitched about middle and hit the top of off. And the very next ball, he got Chris Lewis with a big in-swinger. And we almost got home, but I actually felt after I sat there and I thought, that was our chance, and we should have made more of it. We were a bit tired by the end of the final, but having said that, I think I played in a couple of World Cup finals. No, we haven't won it. Will we win it? Yeah, we will.
Ian, you say England were the best team in the World Cup. I'll tell you, South Africans will not agree with you. Tell me about that semi-final in Sydney, which you shouldn't have won.
Well, if you actually look at the rules, which weren't made up on the rain by us, or you, they were made up in Australia, we would have beaten Pakistan, because we bowled them out for 72 at the Adelaide Oval, and we're something like 30 or 40 for 1, and they got a point each. Now, there's no logic to that whatsoever, and that wouldn't have happened now. So we'd have won that game. Pakistan wouldn't have been through, and we wouldn't have played South Africa in the semi-finals, being the other way around.
On the scoreboard, it's gone up that South Africa need 22 to win from 7 balls.
Yeah, we've got a strange situation here because Alan Jordan has just come back to me and said that the umpires have come back to him and they've changed it to say that there is only 1 ball remaining.
And the scoreboard finally confirming what we've thought to be true for some time now.
Yeah, walking back out after that rain break at the SCG, and I'm walking out with Brian McMillan, who's been a great friend for many years, and I'm walking out with Macca, and I said to him, good luck. And he just, I can't repeat what he said, but he went out there. But that should never have been the situation. The rule that needed to say those laws for the rain rules were dismissed straight away at the end of the World Cup and never used again. So it should have been a totally different scenario. It might have been England-South Africa in the final. Would have still won, but we might have been, yeah. But no, that was nothing. I felt sorry for all teams involved there because Pakistan wouldn't have gone through. Australia went out. So, yeah, the rules were, I don't know how they came to the conclusion to come up with that scenario, but it didn't work. And it might have actually changed the outcome of that World Cup totally.
In comes Chris Lewis to bowl the final delivery. It's pushed away to mid-wicket. You can see that all the players are disappointed with that end. The crowd will roar here at the Sydney Cricket Ground. So at the end, it's England and a disappointing finish to a wonderful match. Disappointed Brian McMillan kept the vessels, the manager Ray Jordan there. The South Africans have played very well at the end. The weather beat them.
Doug Insall has been a very good friend of mine for many years. He tells me, not a story, of your first trip to New Zealand in 1978. Mm-hmm. It's a particular test match. Jeff Boycott is captain. It's the fourth day he's batting, and he's batting pretty slowly, and you need a big, quick lead to give you time to bowl at New Zealand.
We actually were 1-0 down the series. Played the first test in Wellington, got beaten. We just got off the plane from Pakistan, and we got well and truly beaten. We played poorly, to be honest. But we had a team meeting, and we sat there in the dressing room afterwards, and we said, look, we've got to win the next game in Christchurch, because the third and final game is going to be played in Auckland. That's a featherbed, and also the weather is inclement at that time of the year. So, team talk, all-out attack, and we got up to Christchurch, and to cut a long story short, New Zealand just avoided the follow-on. And England have a lead of about 180. We had about 30-odd overs to go on the fourth day and the whole of the last day. 180 ahead, we thought we can get to 300 quickly, we can get to 320, and the wicket was starting to deteriorate, a little uneven, turning a bit. That should be more than enough with our bowling attack. Problem was that when Jeffrey went out after about how many overs, 10, 11 overs, he was about 3 not out. Yeah, look at that, playing magnificently, Jeffrey. But no, so I was in the dressing room, and Derek Randall got told to pad up, and I was told to pad up as well by the vice captain.
Bob Willis.
Yep. RGD Willis says, right, you two, get ready. Out we go. Derek Randall, he went in first, wicket went down. I think it was Brian Rose got out. In he goes. And Derek Randall, if you remember the instance, he was backing up as we're all taught to, and Ewan Chatfield ran into bowl and man-cat him without any warning. So that didn't improve the team spirit, or from our point of view, certainly. So I walk out the bat, and I'm just leaving the dressing room, and I got a tap on the shoulder from Bob Willis. And he just looked me straight in the eyes, and he said, when you get out there, run him out. I looked, I said, hang on. I can't believe this. I said, hang on. I said, that's Sir Jeffrey out there playing his 100th test match or whatever it was. I said, I'm playing my third. And he looked at me and he said, if you don't do it, you won't play your fourth. So out I go. And it's an absolutely true story. And I get out there to the middle, and end of the over, take guard, pushed it into the covers. Yes, no, sorry. And Boyks didn't speak to me for about 3 weeks, so there's always a bonus. But we won that game. We went on and won it. But the funny thing I always remember about winning it, we won it by mid-afternoon. But running in with the new ball from a country, when the captain stood at cover saying to mid-off, you ask him if he wants another slip. I'm not speaking to him. I'm not. But no, that was true, Doug. I mean, everybody knew, and you look around the ground and everybody knew what had happened. And Jeffrey, I don't think he's ever really forgiven me. But it happened, and we won the game, we levelled the series, and the series stayed like that because the weather did take a part in Auckland.
You've said the following: Aussies are big and empty.
Like their country.
Just like their country. If you play against the Aussies, you don't walk.
Definitely. No, you don't walk. You don't even dream of walking. Playing county cricket where you're playing as professionals on a circuit with the umpires, you walk. Well, I did. I walked. Because they're going to get you. If you decide to play it the other way, then any time there's any doubt, it's going to go against you. And I felt that that was the way to play it in county cricket. And Test cricket, I started off playing exactly that same way. And then you start to learn very quickly. the Australians, and I don't respect them for it. I don't have a problem with them at all. But don't whinge if you get a bad one, if you survived a couple of good ones. And Australians in general didn't moan about it, they accepted it. But I just used to say to the guys, lads, unless the stump is out the ground or the wicketkeeper has dived through a brick wall, I said, I think you stay there and let the umpire make a decision.
You said the following about Ian Chappell. He was a coward. He needed a crowd around him before he would say anything. He was sour like milk that had been sitting in the sun for more than a week.
Yeah, sounds about right, Ali. Yeah. No, look, all the people in the world I've played cricket with, there's only one person that I've just never got on with, and that's Ian Chappell. It's no skin off my nose, it's no skin off his nose. I don't send him a Christmas card, he doesn't send me a Christmas card, and we beg to differ. And it's not going to change.
Right now, you are leading our news bulletin with an alleged fracas with Ian Botham and yourself in the car park.
There was some words spoken in the car park. I'm apparently being painted as the instigator. I'd accept 50% of the blame, but certainly not the instigator. And as far as the rest of the rubbish is concerned about having each other by the throat and having to be pulled apart, that's another one of those fairy tales I was talking about.
I think sometimes in the mornings he gets up on a bright sunny day and kicks the end of the bed to just feel a bit more grumpy.
Ian, besides your illustrious career as a great cricketer, your fundraising charity events for leukemia research is unbelievable. You've raised more than £12 million.
Well, it all started in '77, as I mentioned, right at the top of this show, Ali, when I broke my foot against the Australians. Shipped down to Taunton to get it fixed. Musgrove Park Hospital, to get to the physio department, you had to walk through the children's department. And when you see children who are obviously ill, they're strapped up or their legs are raised or there's tubes, there was none of that with these four lads. They were just sat around a board, playing a board game. And I said to the doc, I said, David, I said, these guys just visiting, brothers of, some of the other. So he said, no, they've sadly got a thing called leukemia. It meant nothing to me. And he explained to me that in layman terms, it's cancer of the blood. In those days, children had a 20% chance of survival with the most common form of leukemia. And he said to me that your treatment's going to take 6 to 8 weeks, and you'll be coming in every day for that. He said, but these children will probably not be here at the end of that treatment period. And true enough, they weren't. And that sort of shocked me a bit. And I said, well, what can Kath and I do? Can we do something to help? And he said, well, we do have a party. We hold a party for the children when they're about to pass away, because with all the painkillers, they don't know whether it's their birthday, it's Christmas, it's Easter. It doesn't matter. It's a party. But we don't get any help with the funding. And I said, well, look, let Kath and I, we'll pay for the parties. And so we started paying for the parties, and this went on for quite a few years. And I thought, that's a bit in the negative. What can we do on the other side in the positive? And we came up with the idea eventually, and it came about. I was sat on a train going down to London. I read a colour supplement in a newspaper, and it was about an eccentric old lady called Dr. Barbara Watson, who used to get on a train on the south coast of England at the start of every summer, and then go all the way up to the most northerly point of the UK, John O'Groats, and then spend the summer walking back. So I thought, sponsored walk, that's what we'll do. And to give you an inclination, my wife thought I'd say something sensible, like Cape Town to Stellenbosch. And I blurted out, well, I'm going to do John O'Groats to Land's End. And there's a few strange looks in the room when I announced it to the press. And then give you an idea how poor my geography was. I didn't realise it's 400 miles from John O'Groats just to the English border. And then you've got another 600 miles. So we undertook a 1,000-mile walk, first time up. No one else, I think, has ever done it at the rate we were doing it. We did it in 34 or 35 days.
That's like Johannesburg to Cape Town.
It's about 1,000 miles. So we did it in 34 days, 35 days. And not only that, once we actually ended up doing it twice, but that's another story. And I blurted this out, so off we went. We had no idea what we were going to do. We didn't know where to put the Vaseline to stop the chafing. We learnt by trial and error. And we got to the end. it caught the whole country's imagination. We raised well over £1 million, which went to the research centre, which is just outside Glasgow. And the reason we keep on doing it is to fund that, but also because that 20% chance of survival is now 94%. And in 30 years, to make that much of a difference with a form of cancer, makes you wonder what we could do with other forms of cancers. And hopefully there'll be a knock-on effect. That's why we keep doing it. We've done this walk in South Africa will be the 16th we've done. But the ones, we still do a lot of stuff in the UK. But when we come abroad, we do it for charities in South Africa, or as we did a couple of years ago in Sri Lanka.
Ian, you were knighted in 2007, Sir Ian Botham. Tell me about your day at Buckingham Palace.
Joe, I've had a lot of great moments in my life. I've been very lucky. Had a lot of wonderful highs, whether it's cricket, the walks, etc., etc. But I have to say that Buckingham Palace in 2007 was probably the highlight. It was the icing on the cake, to be honest. It's an interesting process you go through, because I got notified that I've been awarded it, but then you have to keep quiet for 6 weeks. You're not allowed to say a word to anybody until the letter pops through the letterbox, and then it's acknowledged, because then it's released to the press. So those 6 weeks are really tough. So I told my wife, obviously Kath, I told Kath, and I told my 2 eldest children, Liam and Sarah, but I didn't tell anybody else. I couldn't tell my mother. The whole world would have known within about 5 minutes if my mother had found out. So you kept that quiet, which was difficult. And then the big day arrives, and you can take 3 guests. So I took my 2 eldest grandsons, and I thought I'd better take Kath. So the 3 of us go along to the Buckingham Palace. The boys are all in their outfits, all tailored suits, long morning suits, and they would have been about 8 and 14, something like that in those days. And they go along, and you can see the boys' faces light up. Suddenly, all they've seen is books about Buckingham Palace. Now they're inside Buckingham Palace. And they go off, and you arrive, and they get filtered off for coffee and biscuits into a room. I get taken to another room to show the protocol of the day. And basically, you get shown what to do. So when it comes to the ceremony, they're in the gallery. I come through. I'm the second person to go up, and there's a long queue. I think there's 199 people to be done that day, from all walks of life and all kinds of awards. It's a great day. It's a lovely atmosphere. And I get there, and I've been told what to do, and effectively when you walk in, it's a square, and the Queen's in the middle of the square this side. So you come in here, you get to this point, you turn to the Queen, you bow, and then you walk to the centre, turn, bow, and then you walk in. And then the Queen will tell you to kneel, and the ceremony is carried out, and then you stand up, and then the Queen will engage you in conversation. And it was very interesting. She said, I don't talk about cricket. She said, tell me about the charity work and what's going on there. Had quite a long conversation with the Queen, which seemed an eternity, but what a moment. What a moment. How good is this? And then, you know the interview's over, the Queen will offer you a hand, you shake the hand, and you bow, you reverse back to the tea box there, turn, salute, bow, go down to the far corner before you exit, and then you turn, bow, and then go out. Well, I got to the far corner, oh, bloody hell, I nearly forgot. I had to turn and bowed, and the Queen was just laughing at me, smiling. Off you go in there, you do the press, and at the end of the press, you go and sit with your children and wife. And I sit there with the grandchildren and Kath, and the eldest grandchild taps her, said, Grandad, you nearly messed that up, didn't you? And I thought that was pretty remarkable from a 14-year-old to have grasped that. But it was just a great day. We went to Lord's. The MCC laid it on. We had champagne and canopies for about 200 people.
Oh, lovely.
They had on the big scoreboard there, it was Sir Ian Botham. Congratulations.
Lovely.
And it was a wonderful day. And then in the evening, we had dinner for about 40 close family and friends in the library. And this was all courtesy of the MCC as a thank you for everything over the years. It was an emotional day, but not just for myself, but for the family. And also, a lot of this was due to the charity work that we've done. So all the crew were there, and for those people, it was what they deserved as well. So it was a very special day. Sadly, my father didn't make it, but he passed away just before that, but my mother did. She had a great day, and it was just lovely to see all my friends from sport and friends from at home up north. Yeah, very special. Probably
well deserved, Ian.
Thank you.
Ian, your career, 1973 to 1993 as a player, there on till 2015 as a world-class TV commentator. So you've probably seen more international cricket than anybody. During that period, South African cricketers, your best batsman, your best bowler, your best all-rounder.
Well, Jacques Kallis arguably could fall into two of those categories on his own, but I think also Graham Smith at the top of the order. I think he set up, particularly in his early days, when he scored hundreds, he got big hundreds. That tour of England where he just kept on getting double hundreds.
That will do nicely. South Africa win the match. South Africa win the series. Iconic effort from Graham Smith, the captain of the team.
I think now AB de Villiers is right up there.
An innings of absolute excellence in every way.
But I would say over that period of time, AB's relatively young in his career in comparison. I would go with Graham Smith, all-rounder Jacques Kallis.
That's it. That'll go for 4. The monkey is off his back. 200 to South Africa's superstar.
No contest. Best bowler, that's a tough one. Sean Pollock, Dale Steyn.
200 wickets in Test match cricket for Dale Steyn. He's the 4th fastest of all time in terms of matches.
I wouldn't mind having either in my team.
Alan Donald?
AD, yeah, express pace.
He's bowled now, inside edge. Alan Donald gets his 200th Test wicket.
Depends where I'm playing. I take all 3 with me, and that depends on the wicket. Alan Donald's got to be right up there, though. Sean Pollock's got to be up there, and Dale Steyn. But as it's more my vintage, and I saw more of them play, we'll go with, I like quick bowlers, Alan Donald, but Polly's right behind him.
You're now world selector. Your best batsman?
Currently playing.
From 1973 till today.
Oh, right, well, Viv Richards, he'd be in the side. He'd by far, he's the best. Best that's ever lived.
Better than Sachin?
Yeah, best that's ever lived, in my opinion. Ever.
Ever?
Ever.
Why do you say that?
Because he adapted to every form of the game. John Bradman only played one form of the game. I'm not saying he couldn't have adapted, but we'll never know. Viv Richards, we know, could adapt and did adapt. And against the modern bowlers, when you look at the pace bowlers that have been around and the concentration of pace bowlers in that period of time, Viv Richards.
Your best spin bowler?
Shane Warne.
Not the man from Sri Lanka?
No, Shane Warne.
First ball, he's bowled him. Gatting can't believe it. Dickie Bird, I suppose, can't believe it.
He's bowled him, has he? I think he has bowled him round his legs.
Shane Warne has everything. He makes it go always. When he was at his best, he was the best. Best leg spinner. The nearest I saw to him as a leg spinner would have been Abdul Qadir. But Shane Warne for me.
Your best fast bowler?
Blimey. And they're all fully fit. It'll be one of the West Indians. Do you know, I might surprise someone, a few people here. On all surfaces, I would take Joel Garner when he was fully fit.
Joel Garner is almost unbearable out there at the moment from a batting point of view.
And he's gone this time. So Garner's appeal answered in his favour. Ian Botham is out. LBW for 81.
A lot of the other people I've interviewed have thrown up the name Wasim Akram.
Wasim Akram's right up there. So's Waqar Younis. So's Malcolm Marshall. But on all conditions, all pitches, because not many people bowl from 10.5 feet up, so he was always a handful. And when he was fit, he was as quick as any of them. Joel Garner.
Best world all-rounder?
I think when I played, there was a great competition between Hadley.
Richard Hadley advising Ian Botham how to play it.
Richard Hadley, 51.
Khan.
He's bowled him.
Kenny Morrison round the wicket, digs it in short, and Imran's hammered him again.
Dev.
That's out. Yes. Tremendous performance by this Indian side.
And he goes again, and my word, that's through and away for 4 more.
Both of them, there's a real competition there. Since then, Jacques Callis would have to be up there.
Shot. And again, back-to-back, same region, beautiful.
He's been fantastic. South Africa's greatest cricketer. He's a great in the game, and you can see from the applause and also from the way his teammates have come out of the change room to come and receive him back in. And he's just saying thank you.
Wasim Akram didn't get the runs and the volume of runs, but Malcolm Marshall always considered himself as an all-rounder, and I wasn't going to argue with him.
Ooh, what nasty ball.
Very difficult.
During the past week, I've spoken to David Gower and I've spoken to Mike Proctor. During your era, there were 3 other great all-rounders: Imran Khan, Kapil Dev, and Richard Hadley. And I said to him, with Ian Botham, who was the best of them and why? Well, they first said 3 things about you: that your self-belief was unbelievable.
Well, it wouldn't be me to say that we couldn't, would it?
I know the question.
We're 3-0 down with 4 players still say we could do it, so obviously I think we can do it.
2. 6 needed. It was desperate stuff. The crowd were near hysteria and England nearly frantic. There, Mr. Fielder. Then Botham bowled to Thompson. The snick shot to Tavares' twitching hands. Up flew the ball, but Miller was there, and England had won by just 3 runs. Delirium for England, despair for Australia. It was a fittingly extraordinary end to one of the most incredible Test matches ever witnessed. And most important, England were back in the Ashes.
Remind me of the late Clive Rice. He too never thought or believed that he could lose a match. Number 2, they tell me that you played by instinct. You didn't work it out in the change room, the nets, what happened out there, by instinct.
In the air for 6. He plays that shot very well.
And thirdly, you played cricket as though you were an Australian or South African, very attacking, positive all the time.
And that drew Alderman into the trap. That was just about the best shot Botham's played today.
And now he really is going to go. He smashed that miles. It's gone way over the top of deep square leg.
They put you ahead of those other 3. And I think the 2 determining factors was, 1, your slip catching, 120 catches in 102 Test matches. But Mike Proctor made the point that single-handedly you won more Test matches than you owned in the other 3.
Magnificent catch by Ian Botham. Superb wicket, and even takes around as a drawing wicket.
And they put you ahead of Imran Khan, who would have been number 2.
Who am I to argue?
Do they sum you up correctly?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good description. I did have enormous self-belief. I was never out. I think that's just a mental game. I love fielding. I love slip fielding, and I love attacking the game. And most of my life, I remember one innings at the Oval where I batted all day for 50, but that was under exceptional circumstances. But no, I always felt that the best form of defence was attack.
18 off the over. And he's hit that one straight down the ground too. Will the fieldsman cut it off? I doubt it. Straight into the boundary it goes. 22 runs off the over. And what a player he is.
And I still believe that now, and that's why I enjoy watching A.B. de Villiers as a great example. Although he just played a very dogmatic innings in this final test in India, but on his day, A.B. de Villiers can turn a result around, and I think that's the way to play. So, very flattered by that. I'll take it.
You've had an extraordinary career. You hold certain records, even though they were played in the 70s and the 80s. For example, you're the first person to score 1,000 runs, 100 wickets in 21 Test matches. To this day, nobody's come close to that figure. Secondly, a century and 5 wickets in a Test innings. You've achieved this 5 times.
That's it. That's the 100. Back with a square leg.
The great Sir Garfield Sobers only twice and Jacques Kallis only twice. From a bowling point of view in England, you got 383 test wickets. It was only bettered now by Jimmy Anderson. Ian, in conclusion, I think on behalf of all South Africans, we can only commend you for an extraordinary career. You've brought delight and pleasure to millions of people, and we say well done. You can be very proud of what you've achieved.
Thank you very much, Ali. Thank you.